Okay, so this is part 2 of my clock modeling tutorial series. Now, in this part, I'm going to be modeling the body of the clock. This is a relatively large portion of the clock. I'm defining the body as the black plastic that makes up the front and back of it. So to do that, I'm going to be using a revolve modeling technique. Now, imagine a revolve as basically the 3D equivalent of spinning pottery on a spinning wheel. It's very similar, and it's probably my favorite way of creating geometry such as this clock. So I'm going to create a new scene. To create a revolve, you need a profile, and that profile is what the revolve will use to decide what the geometry will look like. And the way you create that profile, define that profile in Maya, is using a norb curve. Now, I'm assuming you have some basic knowledge of norb curves, but I'm just going to do a quick refresher. To create a norb curve, go to Create, CV Curve Tool. That's the one we'll be using. And I'm just going to go to the front view. Now, a curve in Maya is actually a type of NURBS geometry. And the most important attribute to a curve is its degree. And its degree affects, you could say, how smooth it is, or how smooth the interpolation is between multiple points. I'm going to show you a quick example. I'm opening up the tool settings for the CV Curve tool, and we have 5 degree options. We have 1 degree, which is called linear, and we can go all the way up to 7 degrees. But normally, it's only suggested or advised to use 1 degree curves or 3 degree curves. Now, a 1 degree curve, I'm going to draw you a quick example of what that looks like. It's very sharp and pretty undesirable looking. Now, a 3 degree curve, I'm putting the CVs, or control vortexes, in generally the same places as I put the 1 degree curve, but notice how smoother the 3 degree curve is. That's because the degrees is almost a way of saying how Maya handles the, as I said, interpolation between the points. But let's say you wanted to have a smooth surface, but it had to have a sharp edge as well, like we have in our clock. It's a smooth surface along the rim, but it's a sharp edge along the backside where it links into the battery case. So to do that, you can do this with a 3 degree curve. You don't need to switch between 3 degrees and 1 degrees. It's ill-advised to do that. What you would want to do is create your smooth curve, but then when you get to the point where you want a sharp corner, you'll need 3 points. The first one, which is entering the corner, the second one in the middle of the corner, and the third one exiting the corner, and then continue on your geometry. As you can see, we've just created a very sharp edge, even though we're using a 3 degree curve. So, now that I've explained all that, let's look at the revolve tool. I have this drawing up in Adobe Photoshop. Here's how the revolve tool works. It takes the profile curve, outlined in green, and this profile curve represents half of the surface if it was to be spun all the way around. Like I said, imagine it's on a pottery wheel, and it represents the profile of it, half the profile. So, what the revolve tool will do, depending on which axis you select, will take this profile curve and stretch it all the way around from the pivot point, which in this case, center of the scene, stretch it all the way around and create this geometry, which is represented right now by the photograph, this black backing to the clock. So I'm going to show you a quick example. We're going to model a glass. This won't be a good looking glass. This is just as an example. So I'm using the CV Curve tool. I will just create a general stem glass shape. There we go. And now I'm going to go to the Revolve tool. Now the Revolve tool can be found on the Surfaces menu set, and then go to Surfaces, Revolve, and we're going to look at the options. Now to begin with, I'm going to reset them to the defaults. You should too if you've changed the settings at one point in time. And it defaults to revolving along the x-axis, which in this case, the y-axis, which in this case is straight up and down. Now, the rest of these settings we're going to leave at their defaults for now, and click Revolve. and it is now generated Norb's geometry. I should emphasize this is generating right now Norb's geometry, not polygon geometry, and it's wrapped it around the center axis, which is this point right here, along the y-axis, and taking the geometry all the way around 360 degrees. So let's do this in a situation more similar to our clock. We're going to open up part 1. This is where we left off in part 1. And we're going to create the profile curve for our clock. Now, as our Adobe Photoshop drawing suggests, this profile curve is not 100% accurate to the side view we have already imported into our scene. Our side view does not show the fact this lip bends in underneath. So we'll just have to guess that as best we can. Now, you'll see these red points here in the scene. Your scene probably won't have that. I've added these for my own reference, so I know how to create this clock, and I don't have to do this 3 times. This may take you a couple of times to create this clock correctly to the shape, excuse me. So, I'm going to start, once again using the CV Curve tool, and just walk my way along the shape, copying the outline I've already set, and just about there. There we go. Okay, so now I've just created the fresh curve, which I'll be hiding the old one I used for reference. Once again, this is not something you'll have. This is just something I had to help tell this tutorial better. And there's a profile, this line right here. So now I want to revolve it. I want to revolve along the z-axis, which is forwards and backwards. And to do that, I'm going to go to Surfaces, Revolve, open up the options, and set the axis to z. The next setting I want is to have this program output polygon geometry. This is a polygon model. It won't be using Norbs. So, under Output Geometry, set it to polygons. Now the type, I want to set that to quad. And the method, general. And for now, I'll just leave these values at their default. It'll look really bad, but I want to show you something in the Attributes Editor in 1 second. So, click Revolve. So, I'm going to Smooth Shading mode, and all we have is some odd-shaped triangle in the center of the scene. That's because the Revolve tool did not have enough edges, as we defined when we were telling it to use the general method, to build up this surface. It just has enough edges for one up here, and some in between. We're going to fix that by opening up the Attributes Editor, go to Norbs, and you should have some options here that look very similar to the options you saw when you created the Revolve. That's because they're the same options. Mine lets you go back and change them. So, first thing I want to do is increase the number of U. That means how many vortexes will be created along, with the curve. In this case, I'll set it to 60. The other thing I want to do is take this out of 3D space. Okay, so that's those settings. Now for the V, these are axes. I'll leave this in 3D space and set it to 60. That's around the object. So, there's our clock. It just magically appeared. And that concludes part 1. So, we can save the scene. I'll be saving it as part 2. Click Save. Yes. And that concludes part 2.